Residents around the Vaal Dam are still concerned that the river may burst its banks, leading to the potential for humanitarian disaster. Torrential rains in the region have led to an overflow, with sluice gates open to relieve the pressure. But this has left over 300 people with flooded homes. 2 people are missing, one of them a child. ENCS Lindelo Masekane has been tracking the damage. She joins me now with the details. So, Slee, you've been in the Vaal area today. I mean, we're seeing these dramatic visuals now of these sluice gates opening. The people down from the dam, downstream are the ones who've really battled. Because of the volume of water that had to be released, they've really seen a significant amount of damage. Tell me what you saw today.
I think we can only really describe it as a dire situation, essentially, because these people didn't only just suffer copious amounts of rainfall, but then due to the fact that the dam just was filled to capacity, the Water and Sanitation Department took a decision to then open a number of these sluice gates, or floodgates as they're also known, 12 to be exact. And as of this morning, they were still open. So water is still flowing downstream, down the Vaal River, and you can imagine that those who are going to be severely affected are going to be those homes on the banks, on the river banks, or on the flood lines. Now, what we saw today with my colleague Joko Mane was essentially, thankfully, the water has started dying down or reducing because there was no rain overnight. But we know that it's going to take some time, essentially, for it to level out, and there are still homes still submerged underwater. Sadly, there are people who have essentially lost everything. All they have is the clothes on their back, and from what we understand at this point, there is no loss of life, but like you said, there are still at least 2 people missing. And the call at the moment from these affected communities is for government to just intervene in terms of providing some kind of relief. We spoke to one of the first responders who managed to evacuate some of the residents over the past couple of days, and this is what they had to say in terms of the fact that structures will have to be rebuilt, and they're really looking forward to government finally coming in to assist.
The government must come in now and see what he can do for these communities here, because the thing is, there's a lot of money lost here. Luckily, no lives were lost, except some animals and stuff. That you can't just save an animal. We're trying, but the human life is more important to me than saving a house or something. You can rebuild, but you can't rebuild the human.
All right, so talk to us about there's still concerns that there could be further flooding. And I would imagine, even though we've had a sunny day here in Johannesburg and the rain may have stopped for now, the reality is, of course, it's still all those rivers are gushing in towards the dam, which might mean that those sluice gates have to stay open for longer. Is there really still a risk that we could see the Vaal River, parts of the dam bursting its banks?
Certainly. I think it's already burst its banks to some degree, because we've got homes that were quite close to the riverbank that are completely submerged. So the only ones that are left on those riverbanks are a little bit higher up. But if the sluice gates remain open, then the water is just going to keep rising and will probably affect even other homes that are on more higher lying ground. So the risk is still there. There has not been any words so far from the Water and Sanitation Department with regards to the reduction of any gates being closed. As of this morning, I mean, we had a drone up there, and you could still see all 12 gates gushing out with water. So, some of the residents certainly downstream are quite anxious, but many of them already have lost everything. Some only had to leave with the clothes on their back. I spoke to an elderly couple, in fact, that was quite traumatized by the whole incident, but also quite grateful just to be alive. Let's take a listen.
The water was that deep in the house. And as I took my blankets and things, the gush of water came in and threw me right back again into the kitchen. So obviously I dropped everything, and I never had a chance to pick up my bag. And I was told to get out, so I got out the kitchen window. And there was nothing I could do. But we had no money, No cards, nothing, not a single cent. And we had to sleep in the car that night.
Oh gosh, sleeping in the car. I mean, as you say, these are people who've chosen perhaps to retire in this beautiful part of the province. I want to ask you a little bit about government involvement. Earlier there was the guy from Vaal Reaction Unit saying government hasn't really been present. Talk to me a little bit more about that. But also in terms of the regulations on where houses can be built, surely it's clearly demarcated where the danger areas are. So I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, every year when we see flooding, we know that a lot of informal settlements put up makeshift shelters, but to build an entire house in an area that could be in danger, I'm just trying to understand government's role in making sure that people don't build in unsafe areas. Yeah,
I think it does speak to perhaps maybe a lack of oversight when it comes to the approval of where these homes are built. You know, something is suspect there, because if you do look at many of these homes, especially the ones that are built with brick and mortar, you wonder, why are you so close to the riverbanks, you know? And in terms of the informal settlements, which is something the MEC for Human Settlements was speaking to, was the fact that he believes that there are certain organizations, political parties that have been mobilizing for people to just invade illegal land, and most of it is in areas like floodlines, where essentially it's unsafe, but people have been encouraged to go and occupy land illegally, and then something like this happens, and unfortunately government must intervene to, in the very least, relocate them. So I know those processes are underway. For those families that have built those brick and mortar houses, I think that remains to be seen, but I think the immediate response right now is for those who were in informal settlements to be housed somewhere and relocated. As far as we understand, those who were on the riverbanks, who are in homes, have managed to find their own accommodation somehow. Friends, relatives have stepped in, but what the MEC was saying is that the housing backlog in Gauteng is just simply at untenable levels at this point, and he's saying that the government, the provincial government or his department, needs at least 1 trillion rand to address it, whereas the budget for Gauteng in its entirety is around 150 billion or so. So he's saying that, you know, I think there needs to be some kind of partnership, private-public partnership in terms of addressing the housing backlog, but the immediate issue is the fact that illegal land occupation results in further stressful situation when it comes to these kinds of crises. Let's take a listen.
Know that there's about 329 people who are affected by this unfortunate disaster. I'll call it disaster for a lack of a better word. Don't say I've declared a disaster. I don't have that power. So there's about 329 of them. There's 2 of them who are missing, and I think one of them is a child. And I think there's 2 families that have refused to be evacuated. There are families that have been evacuated.
Alluding there to the fact that there are still 2 people missing, and let's hope that they are found safe and well. Interesting what you talk about, the housing backlog. Last night in a State of the Province address, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi spoke about this and saying that the plan now is to give young people service stands to build their own homes, and for the elderly and those with disabilities to get the RDP houses, but acknowledging that there is a real issue. Also speaking to the issue of invasion of private property, that it is just not acceptable to invade private land, but also you point out how it can be such a dangerous move for those people.
Certainly so. So I think from tomorrow we'll be monitoring the search and rescue operations, Sally, in terms of the 2 people that are still missing. Hopefully they will be found alive. We know one of them is a child, and of course we know that 2 families in the very least have refused to be relocated. So hopefully if there is no rainfall overnight, hopefully then the water can continue to subside in that particular area, and as we saw today, mop-up operations will continue. People just trying to salvage anything they can. I mean, I saw people in their boats still using boats to get to their homes because there's still that much water on the ground. So it's a very bad situation. But I think the community in the Vaal has really rallied together, especially considering that so far there has not been any loss of life. Yeah, as it stands.
We'll await those updates, and thank you so much for giving us all those details. Senior reporter Slindelo Masikane.